Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into intellectual property, specifically focusing on copyrights.
That's right.
And really whether you're, designing a logo, writing a song, even coding software, knowing about copyright is just, well, it's crucial for protecting what you create.
Absolutely fundamental. And we're going to explore this using a great resource, understanding IP copyrights, protecting creative work, and navigating intellectual property laws by Kalyani Raj over at Cognitive Market Research. It's pretty comprehensive, updated just this past March.
Yeah, it looks really thorough. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the really key stuff about copyright. We want you to get a real sense of its purpose, the actual benefits, but also, where the limits are and why it matters so much right now, especially with everything being digital.
Right, without getting lost in all the legal complexity.
Exactly. Let's try and keep it clear.
Yeah.
So let's just start there. What is copyright in, simple terms?
Okay, so at its core, copyright is basically the legal protection the law gives you when you create something original, an original work of authorship.
Okay.
Think of it as the law saying, hey, you made this, it's yours. It ensures that, the creator generally gets to control how their work is used and, importantly, has the chance to benefit from it.
So control and benefit. And this isn't just for, famous artists or authors. It covers a lot more.
Oh, definitely. The research points this out clearly. It covers a huge range. Literary works, obviously, but also music, both the notes and the words.
Right.
Films, software code, which is a big one now, and even things like artistic designs, architectural plans, product packaging.
Wow, okay. So pretty much if you create something original and put it into some kind of fixed form, like writing it down or recording it.
Exactly. If it's fixed in a tangible form, copyright protection likely kicks in automatically to some extent.
And this protection isn't just a nice idea. It actually gives the creator some real power, doesn't it?
It really does. The law gives creators what we call exclusive rights. These are quite specific.
Okay, like what?
Things like the sole right to make copies of the work, the right to create new works based on the original, that's called adaptation or derivative works.
Yeah.
The right to distribute copies, to perform it or display it publicly, and, crucially now, the right to transmit it digitally. It's all about giving the creator the reins.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, if you pour your heart and soul, not to mention time and money, into creating something unique, you should be the one deciding how it gets out there and how it's used.
Precisely. And that control, it acts as a huge incentive, Knowing your work is protected encourages people and companies to actually invest in making new stuff.
Right. Why bother spending years writing a book or developing software if anyone can just grab it and sell it?
Exactly. It wouldn't work. It fosters that initial spark and then the effort needed to bring it to life.
Okay, so it encourages creation.
Yeah.
But it's not just about stopping people from copying, is it?
Yeah.
There's a business side, too.
Oh, absolutely. A big one. Copyright allows creators to actually commercialize their work.
How does that work?
Well, through things like licensing agreements where you give someone else permission to use your work, usually for a fee.
Okay.
Or through direct sales, royalties from streaming services, things like that. It connects the creative act to potential financial return.
Right, like a musician licensing their song for a movie or getting paid per stream. That's copyright in action.
That's exactly it. And another important point, copyright helps protect the integrity of the work.
What do you mean by integrity?
It helps prevent others from changing your work without permission or misrepresenting it, ensuring your original vision stays intact. Imagine someone taking a painting and altering it. Copyright helps stop that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want someone twisting your words or making a terrible version of your design. That could really damage your reputation.
Definitely. And zooming out, copyright is, well, it's a cornerstone of the whole cultural and economic system. It lets creators build reputations. It fuels industries like entertainment, publishing, tech. It supports the whole creative economy, as the research calls it.
So really, whether you're just starting out with a creative project or you're running a business, getting your head around copyright isn't just like legal homework. It's fundamental to protecting what's yours and maybe even making a living from it.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, so let's pivot slightly.
Yeah.
How does copyright help with something like brand recognition and building brand value? This seems super relevant for businesses.
Yeah, this is a really interesting angle. Copyright isn't just for standalone art, it's a powerful tool for brands.
Yeah.
When a company copyrights its unique logo, its marketing copy, its website design, all those creative elements, it's essentially drawing a legal line around its brand identity, its look, its feel, its voice.
You mean like instantly recognizable things?
Yeah.
The Nike swoosh, the Apple logo, things like that.
Yeah.
They must be protected.
Exactly those kinds of things. Copyright acts like a shield, stopping others from just copying or using those elements without permission. This is absolutely vital for keeping a brand distinct and trustworthy.
Right, you need that unique identity.
It ensures that only the company, the copyright owner, can legally use or authorize others to use those specific brand assets. And it's more than just stopping direct copies. When you consistently use those legally protected elements, it builds the subconscious link in the customer's mind. They start to associate that look, that style, with your brand, building recognition and hopefully trust. It makes it much harder for competitors to just mimic you effectively.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want a competitor using a logo that looks almost exactly like yours, confusing people.
No way.
Or using your ad campaign style. It just muddies the waters and weakens your brand.
Precisely. The control copyright prevents competitors from sort of riding on your coattails or diluting your brand's image. It helps you carve out and hold on to your unique spot in the market.
And consistency is key in branding, isn't it? Using those copyrighted elements consistently everywhere makes the brand stronger.
Absolutely. Customers connect those visuals, those messages, directly with who the brand is and what it stands for.
You mentioned benefits beyond protection, too, like financial value.
Yes, exactly. Copyrights aren't just defensive, they can be valuable assets. Companies can license their copyrighted logos, characters, or marketing materials to other companies for specific uses.
Generating income that way.
Exactly. It creates extra revenue streams and can even extend the brand's visibility into new areas through partnerships.
Like maybe a food company licensing its cartoon mascot for a line of toys or games.
Perfect example. Leveraging that protected creative work generates cash and gets the brand seen in a whole new context.
Okay, that's clear. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how copyright actually stops unauthorized use. This is where the legal teeth come in, right?
Right. This is where those exclusive rights we talked about become really practical.
So remind us again, those rights are things like copying, distributing, performing.
Displaying, adapting into new works, yes. Having those exclusive rights means the copyright owner has total control over those actions.
Total control.
Pretty much. If anyone else wants to do any of those things with the work, they have to get permission first. Explicit permission from the owner.
So no permission, no copying, no sharing it widely, no making your own version based on it.
That's the fundamental rule. If you just find a cool photo online, you can't just grab it for your company's Instagram without checking the copyright and getting the okay.
Okay, that's a common pitfall, I bet.
A very common one. And if someone does use the work without permission, that's copyright infringement. And the owner has legal options.
The research also mentioned registering the copyright. I thought you said protection was automatic.
It is automatic, technically. The moment you create something original and fix it, write it down, record it, save the file, you have a copyright.
Right.
But registering it formally with the relevant government office, like the Copyright Office in the U.S., gives you significant advantages. It creates an official public record that you own it.
And what's the practical benefit of that record?
It makes your life much easier if you ever have to go to court over infringement. It's strong proof of ownership. Plus, and this is a big one, in many places like the U.S., registration is often required before you can even file a lawsuit.
Okay.
And being registered can make you eligible for things called statutory damages and potentially attorney's fees if you win your case.
Statutory damages.
Yeah, it's basically a set amount of money the court can award per infringement, even if you can't easily prove exactly how much money you lost. And getting your lawyer's fees covered can be huge because litigation is expensive.
Right. So automatic protection is the baseline, but registration really strengthens your hand legally.
Makes sense. How do people actually enforce these rights then, if they find someone infringing?
Well, there are several tools. People use digital monitoring services now, software that scans the web for copies of their work.
Okay.
If they find something, they might send what's called a cease and desist letter. It's a formal warning telling the infringer to stop immediately.
Is that usually enough? Sometimes. Often, yeah. But if not, the next step could be legal action, actually suing for infringement in court.
So it pays to be proactive and know your options. But, copyright isn't unlimited, is it? The research mentioned limitations.
That's a really important point. No, it's definitely not absolute. There are key limitations. One big one is time.
Time?
Yeah, copyright protection doesn't last forever. In most places now, the standard is the life of the creator plus 70 years.
70 years after they die.
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
After that period, the work enters what's called the public domain.
Meaning anyone can use it freely.
Exactly. It becomes part of our shared cultural heritage, available for anyone to copy, adapt, perform, whatever, without needing permission. Think of Shakespeare's plays or Beethoven's symphonies.
Okay, so it expires eventually. What else?
Another fundamental limit is that copyright protects the expression of an idea, not the idea itself. Or facts.
What's the difference there? That sounds a bit tricky.
It can be subtle, but basically, you can copyright your specific article about a historical event, your words, your structure, your analysis, but you can't copyright the historical facts themselves or the general idea of writing about that event. Someone else is free to research the same facts and write their own different article.
Ah, okay. So two people could write completely separate books about the same scientific discovery, for example, as long as they didn't copy each other's specific writing.
Exactly. It prevents one person from monopolizing a whole topic or field of knowledge.
That makes sense. The research also mentioned fair use. That sounds important.
Very important. Fair use is a major exception to copyright rules. It basically allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission for certain purposes.
Like what?
Things like criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research.
So a book reviewer can quote a few lines from the book they're reviewing.
Precisely. Or a teacher can copy a short excerpt for their students. But it's often a complex judgment call. There are factors courts look at, like how much you use, the purpose of the use, the effect on the market for the original work. It's not always black and white.
It's a balancing act, then, between the creator's rights and the public's need for access and discussion.
That's exactly what it is, a balance. And one final limitation to mention is just the practical side. Enforcing copyright can be difficult and expensive, especially online, where infringement can be global and anonymous sometimes.
Right. Identifying who copied your work and actually taking action can be a real challenge. Okay, so it's powerful, but not absolute. Now, let's loop back to the business side. How does copyright give companies a real competitive edge?
Well, by protecting those unique creative assets, we talked about the logo, the ad campaigns, the product designs, website content. .copyright lets a company build an identity that genuinely stands out from the crowd. Those protected elements become the legal foundation for a distinct brand.
It's like building a moat around your brand's unique features, legally speaking.
That's a good way to put it. It stops competitors from just making cheap imitations or confusing customers by looking too similar. This exclusivity is really key for attracting and keeping customers.
Because customers recognize and trust the unique look and feel.
Exactly. When that brand identity is consistent and legally protected, it builds loyalty. And copyright directly stops rivals from just mimicking those elements to steal market share. It helps you hold your ground.
So if a rival company launched a product that looked suspiciously like yours, right down to the packaging design you copyrighted.
Yeah, you'd have a strong legal basis to challenge them and make them stop. It goes beyond just stopping blatant copies, too. Owning the copyright to your creative output lets you build a reputation, foster that customer loyalty. It all adds up to a real, tangible, competitive advantage.
And don't forget the monetization aspect we touched on earlier.
Right. Licensing those copyrighted assets isn't just about extra cash, though that's nice. It can be strategic. It extends your brand's reach, gets it seen in new places, maybe through partnerships. It builds influence.
Like that character licensing example, the book character on toys and clothes.
Perfect. Huge revenue, yes, but also massive brand expansion and cultural impact, all stemming from that initial copyrighted creation.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. Now, the landscape is changing so fast, especially digitally. What are some of the opportunities emerging in the copyright market itself?
Yeah, this is where it gets really dynamic. The sheer explosion of digital content, streaming everything, ebooks, endless online marketing.
It's everywhere.
It really is. And all that content needs protecting. So there's a huge growing demand for copyright services tailored to the digital world. Think registration help, online enforcement tools, easier ways to license content for websites or videos.
So businesses are popping up just to handle digital copyright issues.
Absolutely. Specialized firms, tech platforms. We're seeing AI being used to scan for infringement online. Platforms that make music licensing for YouTubers way simpler than it used to be. It's a big growth area.
The digital frontier needs its own copyright sheriffs. almost.
Kind of, yeah. And it's not just digital content itself. Think about the creative industries, gaming, film, music, digital design. They're all booming.
True.
More creation means more need for copyright protection and smart ways to make money from that creativity, monetization strategies.
And businesses aren't just local anymore, are they?
Good point. Globalization is huge here. Companies expanding internationally need help protecting their copyrights across borders, different countries, different rules.
Complex.
Very. So there's a growing need for legal experts who understand international copyright law for compliance services. Navigating that global maze requires specialized knowledge.
Sounds like a good field to be in if you have that expertise.
Definitely. And then there's technology itself offering solutions. The research mentions things like blockchain, AI, sophisticated digital watermarks.
How do they help?
They offer new ways to track who owns what online, to embed hidden ownership information in files, to monitor usage automatically. Tech companies developing these IP protection tools are finding real opportunities.
Fascinating. Technology creating the problem, in a way, with easy copying, but also offering solutions. It really makes you, the listener, think about how these trends might affect your own work or your industry, doesn't it?
It really does.
Now, one last area the research touched on was secondary market research. How does looking at existing studies and data help with understanding copyright?
Secondary research, basically digging into studies, reports, legal cases that already exist, gives you that crucial big picture view of the copyright world.
Like getting the lay of the land.
Exactly. You can analyze industry reports, legal journals, court decisions to spot patterns. What are the common enforcement challenges? What compliance issues keep popping up? What are the emerging trends?
So instead of just focusing on your own situation, you learn from what's happening broadly.
Precisely. For example, looking at reports on infringement in your specific industry might show you what tactics work best for enforcement, or what kinds of infringement are most common. It helps businesses anticipate problems and maybe adjust how they manage their own IP to avoid those issues. You learn from others' experiences.
Like avoiding reinventing the wheel or stepping on known landmines.
You got it. And looking at historical data, how laws have changed over time in response to, say, new technologies, that's incredibly useful.
How so?
It helps you understand why the law is the way it is now, and it can give you clues about where it might be heading next, especially with things like AI or blockchain becoming more prevalent. Seeing how copyright adapted before helps you prepare for future shifts.
Understanding the past to navigate the future makes sense. And how does it help improve what companies are doing now?
Well, you can compare your own company's way of handling copyright, how you register things, how you handle licenses, how you monitor for infringement. Compare that against the industry standards and best practices you find in that secondary research.
Like benchmarking.
Exactly. It helps you spot areas where you could be doing better, maybe protecting your work more effectively or getting more value out of it. It keeps you competitive and compliant in a constantly changing environment.
So it really seems, whether you're an individual artist or a big company, understanding copyright isn't optional anymore. It's just essential for operating today.
Absolutely. We've seen how it protects creative expression, giving creators really valuable rights and benefits.
Yeah.
Things like building a brand, getting that competitive edge, creating revenue streams.
Right. But we also talked about the limits. It doesn't last forever. It protects the expression, not the idea, and enforcing it, especially online, can be tough and costly. Fair use is another big factor.
Exactly. And in today's world, with digital content exploding, getting a solid grasp of these principles and how they apply is just, well, it's more critical than ever. The opportunities are huge, but so are the challenges in protecting and managing IP rights effectively.
Which leads us nicely to a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe mull over. When you think about how fast technology is moving and how creativity keeps finding new forms, how do you think copyright laws might need to keep changing? How will they evolve?
Yeah, what could that mean for you, for how you create things, or even just how you interact with creative work as a consumer?
It really comes down to that ongoing balancing act, doesn't it? Finding that sweet spot between protecting creators properly, but also encouraging innovation and making sure everyone has access to culture and information. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.